Hey friends, welcome back to Acre Homestead. We have some fun, busy projects we're going to get to today. Basically what we need to do is organize our food storage room downstairs, organize our freezer. I just had delivered this morning a brand new stand-up freezer. And what we're going to put in that stand-up freezer are all of our freezer meals. This is apple crisp that we made with our homegrown apples. I'm going to put September 2022. I never labeled this because all my Sharpies were at the other house and now I have them here, so I'm going to go ahead and label this. We're going to get this in the new freezer. I have chest freezers where I keep the majority of my bulk meat in, and I do that because chest freezers are less likely to be left open. And when you buy a half a cow and you have $2,000 worth of meat in a freezer, the last thing you want to do is lose that meat to having the freezer left open. But it's very, very difficult to keep my freezer meals organized. I found really good success keeping the meat organized in the deep freezers, but when it comes to freezer meals, I'm not having good luck. So we finally broke down and bought a stand-up freezer, and we're gonna get all the freezer meals from downstairs up into here organized. Along with all of our canning we've been doing, I have asked Josh to bring all the canned goods that we've made together just downstairs, and they're piling up. And we never fully organized downstairs once we moved in. It's raining outside pretty heavily. It's the first real rain in over 80 days, and it's glorious. So today's gonna be a perfect day to do some serious organizing. This is that tomato sauce we had cook overnight. I'm just wiping the jars off so we can carry these downstairs, and I'm gonna label them. I haven't labeled any of the canning I've done this year, which is not good because if I don't get to it, I'm gonna forget it. These are just plain crushed tomatoes. So I'm gonna put crushed tomatoes and the year. Before we run downstairs to get some serious organizing done, I wanna show you what our ferments are looking like. This is our sriracha. You can see there's some bubbles forming. So every day I just go in here, look at all those bubbles, and I just mix it up. We're on day 3. That's all you have to do. This one here is our ghost pepper. Slide that back. And then for our bourbon, our apple bourbon, because the apples are floating, every day I come in here and I just shake this up. I try to get the apples that were on the top toward the bottom. I wish you guys could smell this because they already smell so good. I don't really do it to the pears because the pears are sitting underneath the alcohol, so I don't really have to worry about anything happening with them. So this is currently our fermentation station. I just grabbed some essentials we're gonna need to do some organizing. We're gonna need tape to label our buckets, scissors to cut the packaging off our bulk goods that we will then tape onto our buckets, a Sharpie, a broom, and a dustpan. Now we're not gonna be able to organize everything because some of this stuff is going up into the bonus area where that remodel project hasn't finished, but the majority of this mess is all food and food storage that absolutely can be organized. I just opened up the blinds so we can see better down here. I turned the fan off. Our potatoes were down here curing. So we need to take care of our garlic, our potatoes, all of our onions we purchased from the local farmer. There is a bunch of empty boxes along with some food that needs to be taken care of. This is where we were curing. So this just has dirt and debris. And then we have all of our canned goods that we've been collecting. Josh has been just carrying it down for me, and they've just been accumulating in piles. So those need to be taken care of. Along with some of our Azure order has just been set down here, and I need to go ahead and get these in buckets. When it's harvest season and garden season, it's kind of just one foot in front of the other. I do have a lot more stuff that needs to be taken care of. But the big next preservation project is getting those bell peppers that I purchased from the local farmer made into dinner, stuffed peppers, but I didn't have the freezer space to do that. So now that I have that new freezer, I want to organize down here and then clear out these two freezers of any sort of freezer meals, get them upstairs, get them inventoried, and then we'll just feel a lot better. And then tomorrow we can start fresh on actually making the freezer meals. I'm a little overwhelmed when I'm sitting down here, or when I'm down here right now trying to figure out what exactly I should start with. So when something feels overwhelming to me, like this project does right now, I'm going to tackle something that is relatively easy, which is going to be these potatoes. And then once I have these potatoes tackled, then I can just start feeling like I've accomplished something and I'll have more motivation to continue forward. I have two different buckets here. Here are my buckets with my really small potatoes. And then here is another, or crate, they're crates, that we're going to go ahead and get these bigger purple potatoes in. I'm just going to take a minute here and kind of separate them by size. We'll feel like we got something done. Maybe what I'll try to do is put the Yukon Gold potatoes, or Butterball, these are Butterball potatoes, on one side of this crate, and these Purple Majesty potatoes on the other side. If I see any potatoes that have any cracks or dings on them, I'm going to set those aside and bring them upstairs, and we'll eat them for dinner tonight. I am not an expert when it comes to food storage or long-term storage or anything like that. My main goal is to try to grow enough or procure enough from local food producers in my area for 1 year's worth of food. I'm not looking to, have a prepper pantry that is for 30, 20, 15 years. My goal is to just have some food security, food insurance for the next year, just for whatever life might throw my way, and to be able to provide my family with either homegrown or the best quality I can find. There is a book called A Year Without a Grocery Store that really goes into depth on proper food storage, so that when you do get into bulk buying and food prep, that you can make sure that it's lasting and staying fresh and you're not losing it to bugs or pests. So I can link that book down below, because that has a lot of resources that I have learned from in order to keep my food storage safe. Here is our 2022 potato harvest. We have our large potatoes here, medium potatoes, small potatoes, and then these were the potatoes I just put in the crate today. And then we have just a smaller box of potatoes here. We have already gone through all the potatoes that were nicked and dinged. So these are all pristine potatoes, except for the two that I just found while organizing these last potatoes. So now that feels good that we got that checked off the list. Let's go ahead and get the onions put away. And then I want to tackle just all this cardboard, because there's just too much cardboard down here that's not necessary anymore. So I do not grow enough onions to get us through the year. So I buy in bulk from a local organic farmer onions. I bought 80 pounds of red onions and, sorry, my dogs are wrestling, and 80 pounds of these yellow onions. So we're going to get these put away on this shelf here. I had a lot of comments when I talked about buying these onions from a local farmer that 160 pounds of onions total is a lot of onions, and it is a lot of onions. But if you divide that by 52, that is only 3 pounds of onions a week. And Josh and I can easily go through 3 pounds of onions a week. I do a lot of caramelized onions. I do pickled onions. If you watch my cooking videos, there's a lot of onions that go into my cooking. And so I think that this actually might be the perfect amount of onions for us. I'm really excited about it. The biggest thing is just, will they stay fresh long enough? I have a feeling that probably around February or March or so, they're going to start to sprout. Onions are biannuals, which means the first year you plant the seed, it grows a big bulb, and the goal of that onion is to grow a big bulb so that it can go dormant over winter. And then the next year, that bulb will sprout again and it'll go to flower or seed, and it'll produce the seed to then grow an onion the next year. And so that's why I have a feeling that come February or March or so, my onions might start to sprout. And if that is the case, then I will go ahead and preserve them up either by dicing them up and freezing them, or dicing them up and freeze drying them and turning them into onion powder or something like that. My goal is to keep a close eye on this produce that's down here and not to lose any of it. So now that we have the onions put away, now I did want to say this is just a basement. It's not a cold room or anything like that. It stays about 60 degrees, which is a lot cooler. I shouldn't say that. In the summer, it stays about 60 degrees. I haven't lived here in the winter yet, so I don't know what temperature it'll be in the winter, but I'm assuming it'll probably be around the same-ish temperature. And so it's not ideal. Ideal would probably be more in like the 50s, but we're working with what we have. And last year, I just had them in my pantry, and that was probably around 70 degrees, and they lasted a long time. I just didn't buy enough to get me through 1 year. So now I'm cleaning up the dirt, getting it swept up, and it feels good to make some progress. All right, we've made some great progress. I can see a huge section of the floor right here. We got it swept. It's feeling a little cleaner in here too, especially because all those potatoes were dusty and dirty. So I had purchased, if you watch my Azure haul, 75 pounds of rice. And I had asked Josh to bring it down here. It was 3 different styles of rice, not all of the same kind. Basmati, jasmine, and just a plain long grain. And I was walking around here for 10 minutes and I'm like, how do you lose 3 25-pound bags of rice? And Josh just told me he put the bags in that bucket, which I really appreciate because that's safe in that bucket. But now I know where it is, so we're going to start tackling some of this stuff. This whole project is kind of overwhelming, but it's just all about picking the next little thing and tackling it. So I think what we're going to start doing is labeling our canning jars, because that's a relatively easy thing to do. We've got our pinto beans here that we made together, and these are our pinto beans here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, I should have 4 of them. I'm sorry, I should have 5 of them. 5. Now one thing I did is I left space behind these shelves so that I could easily walk behind them, and I can push these forward and I can bring these back here. Just like that. These at the front. So now I have more space right here that I can put more pinto beans if I need. Right now I have 7 jars, which is probably plenty. One thing I am doing while I'm down here is I'm kind of doing a little bit of an inventory, and I realize I use the last of my canned chicken. I have about 4 or 5 whole chickens in one of my deep freezers, along with 2 turkeys from last year. So that's going to be a project coming up where we're going to be canning up some more chicken. I have beef. I've not been using the canned beef very much, but the canned chicken is amazing. Josh and I were honestly a little bit worried about it, and we weren't exactly sure if we were going to enjoy it. And we love it. We absolutely love it. It makes for an absolutely easy convenience meal because you don't have to cook the chicken. This is our salsa verde we made together, and it turned out so good. I do have green tomato salsa verde here. We actually made this with green tomatoes, not tomatillos, and I like it, but I don't like it for eating with chips. It's really good if you make like green enchiladas with it, but it does have a little bit of a different texture and a little bit different flavor than salsa verde with tomatillos. That's what this is. I guess I have 1 can left from 2021 because we really tried to savor it. This stuff is so good. We've already gone through 2 jars since we made it together. I top it on everything. It's just delicious. So we're going to get all the salsa verde we made up there, and we're not going to put that in the same spot we put the tomato salsa verde because they're 2 different products, really. When I say they're 2 different products, I basically just mean I use them in 2 different applications. So I want to make sure that they are distinct and they're separate from each other. We are not done preserving. We have a lot more canning we need to do, and this is kind of like, I would probably say we're about 2/3 the way there. This is our hot sauce we made. This is just our simple red pepper hot sauce that is so good. And then I never got around to showing you this pumpkin, or this is butternut squash we pressure canned together. This I am so excited for. We can make soups, muffins, cakes, anything you would use canned pumpkin for, you can use this. Even though it is in chunks, you drain the liquid off, you mash it up, and you have canned pumpkin. It is not recommended. Where should we put this? Let's put it next to our applesauce because it's kind of a baking item. And I only have 4 jars. It's not recommended to can pumpkin in a pureed form. It's something about how, I don't know if it's because it hasn't been tested yet, or I've heard it's because if it's in a pureed form, it's too thick and the heat can't penetrate all the way through. I don't know. I've just heard that this is the way you're supposed to do it, so this is the way I did it. We could even make butternut squash soup, butternut squash curry, anything you would use pumpkin for. So I'm really excited. I have one more butternut squash we could can. Hey. Careful. The chickens are by the back window and the dogs are getting a little excited. This here is our Sloppy Joe base. I had to look at it for a second, and that's exactly why we need to get to these. Because I have been known to forget what is in jars. So I was doing some reading on the pumpkin and why you can't pressure can at home pumpkin puree. It's because pumpkin puree is so dense and home canners can't get as hot and high as pressure as they need. Industrial canners are not anything like home canners, and so it is definitely not recommended to pressure can pumpkin puree. The other night, or it was actually this weekend, Josh and I were cleaning out the garage, and we had a very, very busy weekend, and I needed a dinner quickly, very, very quickly. Didn't have time to thaw a freezer meal. I just needed a quick dinner, and I didn't want to go out. That's, you know, sometimes you're so tired, going out even seems like too much work. So I came down here, I grabbed, I think it was 5 jars. I grabbed a jar of pinto beans, black beans, a jar of chicken, a thing of chicken broth, salsa juice. If you watched my how to can summer salsa, you'll know what I'm talking about, and a jar of green tomato salsa verde. I dumped all of that into a pot along with a packet of the frozen corn that we preserved up this year. I threw in a bunch of spices, cumin, coriander, salt, pepper, paprika. I let that boil for 30 minutes on the stove. It took me less than 5 minutes to put together, and I had a delicious home-cooked soup. We topped it with a little bit of cheese and sour cream and some chips. And there was one thing I was thinking about when I was making that meal, because I used 5 of these jars. I used to make taco soup all the time growing up, and I would use 5 cans. And I think one thing that I underestimated the importance and the coolness of canning your own food is that you use less waste, or you're producing less waste, because the jars are reusable. They're glass. I'm going to reuse these over and over and over again. The only thing that gets thrown away is the lid, versus an entire tin can, you're throwing the entire, or you're recycling the entire tin can away depending on where you live. And it hit me that that was such a cool thing, that we can reduce the amount of waste we're producing by canning our own produce. We're also reducing the amount of carbon emissions because I am sourcing a lot of this local, and I'm preserving it up from my garden or from local producers. And I just think it's a really cool thing. I just think it's one thing that we don't always think about, or I hadn't really fully articulated in my own head the coolness of that. All right, so that is our 2022 Salsa Verde. Awesome. So I think we have enough here that we do not need to hoard it. We can enjoy it as much as we want. I'm excited about that. There's just so many fun things to consider when you're considering preserving your own food. You can control the ingredients, you can reduce the waste, you can know the farmer, or you can grow your own food, and it's just a really fun thing. That could have been really bad. I just found the last can of chicken. I had brought that to the other house in order to... Oh, there's another one. When I needed some quick meals over there, but I guess I never got around to using it. This is peach salsa. I canned plenty of that last year, so we don't need to can any of that this year. If you want a really quick and easy side dish, take a jar of your salsa, whether it's home canned or not, throw it in the rice cooker, your rice cooker, with your rice, and you can have a really quick and fast, easy, delicious kind of Spanish style rice. Especially this one. This is a tomato peach salsa, and it just makes a delicious side dish with just some rice. Super simple. So we're filling up this shelf. I buy the majority of my canning jars at Goodwill. This year I did have to buy some brand new ones because I didn't have time to do much Goodwill shopping this year. And when you buy them at Goodwill, you obviously don't get the boxes. So I do try to keep the boxes of the ones I do have because it makes it easier to carry your jars from where you can them in the kitchen to where you store them. So I don't like to recycle my boxes that the canning jars come in when I do buy them new. We have a few more different things over here we need to label. This is our enchilada sauce, our red enchilada sauce. This is our tomato, onion, garlic puree. I'm calling this like a chili base, a spaghetti sauce base, something that has more than just tomatoes in it. And I'm really excited about this product. I've never made anything like this before, and I think this is going to be a game changer because I won't have to go through the effort of chopping onions and garlic for this if I want to make a very quick pasta sauce or something. A funny thing happened last year and this year that was not intentional by me, but is something that I'm going to be intentional moving forward. And that is that when I go to can or preserve something, it's really nice if I do more than a year's worth. So last year I canned applesauce, cowboy candy, and just plain salsa. And I canned enough of all of that to where I didn't need to do any of those projects this year. And this year I canned enough enchilada sauce, I believe, and I'll have enough just plain tomato sauce that next year I won't need to make either of those products along with ketchup. I think I made plenty of ketchup to last me 2 years. And so by doing more than 1 year's worth, it's going to keep my food preservation projects more interesting. I'm not going to have to do all of the same preservation projects every single year. I can take a break from one thing and I can preserve whatever that item is, like the apples. Instead of making more applesauce this year, I made apple crisps and apple pies, and I'm so excited about having those in my freezer. It's just fun to have different food preservation projects in different forms and not to have to do the same preservation projects every single year. Now, there probably will be things that I'll always have to do every single year, and that's totally fine. I will probably always constantly be making broth because anytime I have a chicken that I roast or a turkey, then I'm going to make broth with those bones. And I don't know, it hit me this year that it's going to be fun to try to be a little bit more intentional about kind of planning out different preservation projects. Now that I'm getting pretty close to putting all the canned goods away, I'm checking my buckets, and I am going to start putting those dry goods away here pretty shortly. So down here I had my beans and I had my canned meat up here. I decided to move my canned beans up here, so this is kind of like a protein shelf up here, because I wanted to put some of my tomato products next to my tomato products. So this whole bottom area down here is kind of tomato products. Just try to put like things with like things as much as possible. After we get all these cans taken care of, because we're almost done with them, we're going to tackle some of the bulk dry goods and get those refilling our buckets. Oh. Shoot. Well, I'm sure that was bound to happen at least one time. I've never done that before. I've never broken a jar. So, first time for everything, right? Darn. I shouldn't totally say that. I've definitely broken jars before, but never on the ground like this before, with them being full of product. So this was 2 jars of the tomato, onion, garlic mixture. So it was not the most fun thing to clean up. I just took a piece of cardboard and scraped it up and then dumped it in the garbage can, and then I rinsed out that dustpan before it had a chance to dry, and then I took some cleaner and I scrubbed the floors. Now these floors were kind of still dusty from the potatoes, so it probably didn't hurt that they got a little bit of a scrub, but definitely not something that I enjoyed doing when I had other things like putting the bulk stuff away. But that's how it goes sometimes. All right, we have that mess cleaned up. It is time to start taking care of some of these dry goods. Now, the rice is buried under quite a bit of things. We've got some pastas here that need to be put away. Josh just didn't know where everything goes, which is fine. I know where it goes, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a second to get these put away. And let's just double check to make sure the rice is in here. And yes, woohoo, okay, good, it's in here. Let's take care of this stuff first. Before we start organizing our bulk dry goods, I'm going to tackle this corner of the pantry down here. I will eventually give you an entire tour of this area, but it needs to be completely organized before we do that. So this is where I have a lot of my store-bought items, things that I cannot produce or make or buy locally, like right here. This is going to be my oil section, so I have really beautiful olive oil, my avocado oil, and I will eventually put some coconut oil over there. And I had some boxes, like this box was a box that was moved from the last house, and it's just been sitting down here, and it has a bunch of miscellaneous stuff in it. So that bag I just took out were some bulk spices I bought from Penzeys, which is such good quality spices. It also had random things in it, like bags of coffee that I needed to put. There was a couple random cans of coconut milk. That's what that is. And so it was just a matter of getting things put where they go. I try to put like things with like things and making sure that things fit in here. So right now what I'm organizing is some soy sauce, some different vinegars, coconut aminos, and things that I have never attempted to try to make at home. Now here I have some homemade pasta on this top shelf. If you've watched, I make homemade egg noodles and I just dry them on the counter for about 4 or 5 days. Once they're dry, I put them in a Ziploc bag and they store just in this, basement, or I've had them store in my pantry for up to a year, no problem. As long as they're dried completely, they are shelf stable. And I do have some store-bought pastas as well. Now here is some empty jars. I was wondering where all my empty jars were, and I ended up having to buy quite a few jars this year, and I really didn't need to do that because I have jars, I just didn't know where they were, and I found them today, so that was really good. And now I'm going to start refilling my buckets. This is my favorite way to store my dry bulk goods, are in these 5-gallon buckets with the Gamma Seal lids. That's what these blue and green and eventually you'll see white lids are. They screw on and off. They are a little bit more expensive than your pry-on lids, but they make accessing your food so easy that it's worth the investment. And I can link them down below if you're interested in them. Now,
I do have, if you look on these buckets, it's hard to see. You can't see them on these ones, but the other ones you could see. I had a little label that said what was in the bucket. And because that label was so little, it was always hard for me to find what was in what. And one of you guys gave me the suggestion to cut the label off the bag and tape it onto the bucket. And so as I've been slowly restocking my bulk goods, I've been saving the labels and cutting them off, but it's taking time because I have to go through an entire bucket in order to buy another bag to fill the bucket. And so I've been really, really enjoying that because I can just see, oh, that's a bag of pinto beans, that's a bag of jasmine rice. These are 3 different styles of rice here. Josh and I love rice, and we like to have all the styles of rice so that if we're making, different types of cuisine, we can make sure we have the right rice that matches. The dogs are trying to help me. They're so fun. So these are my 2 dogs. The one I just kissed is Tibro, and he's our younger dog, and the other one is Orbit. Orbit is our older dog, and Tibro is Orbit spelled backwards. That's how we came up with the name Tibro. So you can kind of see that there is a label on there, and that says jasmine rice, but because it's so small, it's hard to see. So I am taping the label from the bag on there. If you're interested in where I buy my bulk goods, I can link that down below. I buy the majority of my bulk goods from Azure Standard because I can get the best price typically for dry goods that are organic, and that is something that is important to me.
We have made some serious progress. We've got all the potato and dirt mess cleaned up. The onions are taken care of. We have now officially put all the food on the pantry shelves. I've gotten all the Azure stuff that was in the original packaging in buckets, so it's safe. Everything is put back away, which is great. Did I tackle all these boxes down here? No. Some of this stuff, like I said, are things that are going up in our bonus area, and we just got the doors last weekend. They are going to be installed hopefully this weekend, which means then Josh can finish the trim, and then we can paint and put the flooring in, and we can get some of this stuff moved from down here that goes up in that area. Even though this area down here is not perfect right now, I want to kind of switch gears. I know that my canned goods are good. I know that the pantry staple dry goods are good. From pests and things, they're all in buckets. We're good to go. Now we need to tackle this scary freezer along with this one. I like to keep my half a cow, my whole hog, and the meat that I buy in bulk in chest freezers because the likelihood of the freezer being left open is a lot less because of gravity. The door closes. I have left freezer doors open, and the idea of losing half a cow or whole hog is unacceptable to me. If I end up losing freezer meals that I'm going to be putting in the one upstairs, then that's more my time, not as much of a, I mean, there would be a huge financial investment in it, but it'd be more a time investment that I would be losing versus losing half a cow or whole hog. Plus the idea of the devastation of that going to waste, just, it's unacceptable to me. So because of that, I deal with having to deal with a chest freezer. I do have temperature gauges in both of these that has an alarm on it. So, and I'm going to put one in the one upstairs, so if it gives above a certain temperature, the alarm goes off and I know. But in the move, these got really unorganized, and putting in half a cow between both of those two things, both these chest freezers are a disaster. I'm getting out some of the freezer meals that are in here that are left from the last couple times we've done it, and we're going to put these in the freezer upstairs. I'm also going to get out some meat for some freezer meal cooking we're going to be doing tomorrow, and then I'll be able to organize these freezers a little bit better. Let's see. I do have a whole video on how I like to keep my chest freezers organized. The key to keeping a chest freezer organized is keeping it about half full, and that way I use these bags in the freezer and I can move stuff around. I would put all my bacon in one bag, all my ground beef in one bag, and so I can easily find and move things around. But in the craziness of everything, we have gotten some serious disorganization here. I'm gonna pull one of these out. This is a meatloaf. We're gonna have this for dinner tonight. Wow, this is already, these are all marinated meats that we did. I made these thinking that I would have time to make them on the grill, but with all the moving and everything, I didn't get to them. So I already am starting postpartum time with a bunch of really good recipes, which I'm really excited about. Oh wow, this is gonna be really good. Getting all this out of here. These are those pies that we made, so I need to go upstairs. They're only wrapped in parchment. I need to wrap them in a couple layers of saran wrap so they stay nice and fresh and don't freezer burn. This may not look any better to you, but this already looks a lot better to me. In this bag, I'm going to start putting the groceries we need for the freezer cooking we're going to be doing tomorrow. I need quite a few bacons. I need Italian sausage. Let's see if we have that in here. Italian sausage. I need to order another whole hog. I am almost out of Italian sausage, it looks like. We need some ground beef. We need some kale. My ultimate goal is to have one of these freezers be all meat, one of these freezers be all fruits and vegetables, and so overwhelming. I have never had my freezer this full before, ever, and so this is just like, it's a lot for me to handle, but that's why we're getting to it. Things like pie crust, that needs to be taken out. That's gonna go in the upstairs in the other freezer because it's basically like a fast food meal. I've already made it. Got some kale, more gnocchis. Oh, I have a huge bag of tomatoes. I need to get those out of here and get those stewing down. That's going to save us a ton of space. Changed my mind. We're going to have lasagna for dinner because that means I don't have to make any sides. So that's what this is. We're going to let that thaw for a little bit and then we'll cook that. These freezers might still look like a disaster, which they do. But there's a lot more space in there, and I've gotten all the freezer meals or pre-prepped food out of them so that I can come down here and reorganize them. These will be reorganized coming up pretty soon, but right now we're going to take up all those freezer meals and we're going to get these in the upstairs freezer. Okay, these are, this freezer moves every time. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Okay, so down here, I think we'll put our marinated meats down here.
Some of the stuff that's taking up so much space in one of our deep freezers is a bunch of stuff that I actually need to can, but it was during all the craziness of the move and everything, so I just froze a bunch of it. So I probably, after I get back from Virginia, I'm going to be going to HOA, Homestead America Conference. I'll probably do a bunch of those canning projects that I didn't have time to do this summer.
I have all the freezer meals in the freezer. Let me kind of show you what I did here. This is the dessert area. We've got 3 apple pies, fillings, 2 apple crisps. Here are some kind of smaller dinners. I have pork and mushrooms, meatballs. Here we have pumpkin pasta and 2 squash dishes. And then down here we have all of our chicken marinades, meatloaves, and our pork marinades. And then over in the shelf, I have our peach pies. These are our pierogies with some, these are just some store-bought pot stickers. We have a ton of gnocchi we made together. We have a pie crust. I didn't even know I had that in the freezer, so I'm glad that I searched. Here we have some pre-cooked Italian sausage and a pizza crust. Oh, and then these are some sausage rolls that we made. And that is now our brand new freezer for pre-prepared meals and desserts. And I'm really excited about this. Now that we have this done, I eventually can finish organizing those 2 freezers downstairs, but that's gonna have to be for a different day. Let me show you what I have going on in the inside kitchen. In here, I went ahead and took out that big bag. This is a ton of tomatoes from the garden, so we're gonna process these. I'm gonna throw these in the roaster pan like we did when we made that sauce. I'll let it cook overnight and then we'll get it in jars. I pulled out 2 freezer meals. This one is gonna be for tonight. I'm gonna throw it in a 350-degree oven. It's probably gonna take 2 hours to cook, which should be perfect timing when Josh gets home. I have some green beans or something I can saute up. We can enjoy with that. This is pork and mushrooms. I will cook this probably in a couple days because I am gonna be doing some freezer cooking tomorrow, and we will use what I cook tomorrow for dinner. In here, I gotta get it out. I have bacon, sausage, ground beef, and those are gonna be for some stuffed peppers. I need to get some brown rice cooking. I'm also gonna cook up this turkey. It's completely frozen. As soon as it's thawed enough that I can take the plastic off, I'll take the plastic off, I'll throw it in the oven, really low temperature, and I'll have it cook low and slow all night so that tomorrow it'll be ready for me so we can use some of that ground or the pre-cooked turkey and some of our stuffed peppers. I purchased 20 pounds of stuffed peppers from a local farmer, and one way I wanted to preserve them up was to make them into freezer meals. And I've got, I think, 3 or 4 different stuffed pepper recipes we're gonna do to turn those peppers into stuffed peppers. Whenever I make stuffed peppers, I usually buy them at the grocery store, the peppers, and I don't buy organic because they're just so darned expensive. So one of my goals this year was to buy these beautiful peppers from my local farmer, and then I could turn them into freezer meals. So right now, it seems like it's gonna be a lot of work, but it's gonna be a lot of fun tomorrow. So I wanna get that meat thawed so that I can get it cooked up. And then because I'm cooking an entire turkey, clearly that's way too much meat for fillings for stuffed peppers. I'm gonna go ahead and can up the rest of the cooked turkey because like I said, I only have those 2 jars of pre-cooked chicken downstairs, and I really like having cooked chicken and or turkey. I use them interchangeably. That was a free turkey I got last Thanksgiving. If at my local grocery store, if you spend a certain amount of dollars, you get a free turkey. I still have a huge table of tomatoes I need to deal with, and then we still have a ton of peppers from the garden that we need to deal with, and we will get to all of that this week. This week is gonna be a busy week. I'm really glad that we got what we got done today. It wasn't as much as I wanted to get done. I always have more grandiose plans of what I want to get done, but even what I got done, I feel a lot better about it. I'm so excited about having all my pre-cooked or my freezer meals in one area, and it will be really nice when we get those 2 deep freezers organized again. I typically keep my deep freezers super tidy because they're so full. I can't do that, and it's been stressing me out. It also feels good to get the Azure stuff taken care of, the canned goods taken care of, even though we're going to be doing some more canning. It's just great progress with me today. So thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I've got a little bit more time in the kitchen, just, I guess, processing those tomatoes, getting that turkey in the oven, and then I can sit down and relax for the evening so that I'm not completely wiped out for tomorrow for the food prep we need to do tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. I can pop a couple more of my videos right here you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I want to say a huge thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.